It's important that people understand, I think, what's happening in the world of AI and interviewing. And I know that you've created this tool called MyInterviewPractice that I love and that I've started using with some of my clients. And I wanted to talk with you today because you're at the forefront of this space and understanding how it's impacting the recruitment process and the interview process and what candidates can do differently to help them now that we have these sorts of tools available. So why don't you tell us a little bit about sort of what led you to create this tool and why you think it's important?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for having me today. And thanks for everyone that joined. So just a little bit of background on myself. My name's Raj. I'm the CEO and founder of My Interview Practice. So I started the company about almost 8 years ago now, and it's crazy to think time has just flown by. But one of the reasons that we started the company was I just saw that so many people struggled with the interviewing process. It isn't something that's taught in any curriculum, and you're kind of just expected to just jump into it. And I first noticed this actually after college because I went to an engineering school. So there were brilliant engineers that I went to school with, but they struggled with landing a job after
Hmm.
graduating. And so for me, that was like an eye-opening experience because they had the talent, they had the qualifications. They just struggled with the interviewing process because they had never done it and they were kind of
Hmm.
expected to just learn as they went. And I wanted to create kind of a safe environment for folks to do mock interviews and build their confidence over time. And that's kind of where it stemmed from. And then through the years, we've just kept building on it, building new features, including AI, which we'll talk about
Hmm.
later in the discussion today. But
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's such an important thing to be prepared for interviews. It's really like, your chance to shine. It's your chance to prove what you can bring. And a lot of times I feel like candidates kind of misunderstand how to prepare for an interview. They think it's all about like rehearsing and like practicing their answers. And really, what I teach is it's all about preparation and research more than it is about practice or rehearsing. But I know this tool is designed to help people to practice and prepare, right? Which is exactly what you created. So, what do you see, and what kind of feedback have you gotten from people as they're using the platform about like how it helps them to prepare and show up, more naturally or more prepared for those interviews?
yeah, for sure. I think the most nerve-wracking experience of doing an interview is not knowing what questions may be asked, right?
Right.
And
Hmm.
that's the number one thing people come to us and it's just like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to be asked. The conversation can kind of go in 1,000 different directions, right? But in our training and kind of the way that we approach it is you first and foremost should be able to talk about your strengths and what you bring to the table, right?
Hmm.
Because that's sort of the foundation. And then from there, it's even better if you can connect the dots to what the employer needs, right?
Yeah.
Um, the
I want to
the
stop on
reason,
that for a second because that's so
yeah,
important, right? That connecting the dots to what the employer needs. I think a lot of times people practice their strengths maybe from like this generic perspective of like, okay, here's a star story about my communication skills, or here's a strength story about, an achievement I had, but they're not necessarily thinking about it from the employer's angle and thinking like, how is this going to add value in this context, in this industry, for this particular job? And that value connection, like connecting your strength to the employer's need or to their situation, their environment, their challenges, that's when you nail it, right? Like that's what's really important. So tell us more a bit about that.
yeah, absolutely. And so I think connecting those dots, like you said, is probably the most important part. And foundationally, you need to first be able to kind of build a case around your strengths, right? What is it that
Mm-hmm.
you're bringing to the table? And to your point about the preparation, I think it's not about rehearsing, right? It's not about saying like, okay, I have, an answer for every single question that may come my way, but it's building that confidence, and I think it comes with when you prepare your sort of quote unquote stories around your different strengths, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have different projects or different initiatives that you worked on either in your career or if this is your first job through the education that you've gone through, right?
Mm-hmm.
And once you've sort of built those quote unquote stories around, hey, here are the strengths that I can articulate,
Mm-hmm.
then you can kind of connect them to any question that might come your way, right?
Yeah.
And it's less about being charming or charisma, and it's more
Mm-hmm.
about like in the interview, then you can actually show them like your genuine self, right? Without
Yeah.
having to over exaggerate or anything, because that's really what's going to come through to the employer. At the end of the
Yeah.
day, they have a need that they're trying to fill. And if you can show them, okay, this person, on day one is going to deliver and help me fulfill my job better, help me and our clients become better, then you're more
Mm-hmm.
likely to get the position.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. And so we're talking about like connecting, like practicing your strengths and practicing your stories, right? And then we're talking about connecting that to the employer. I know for my clients, one of the things I really emphasize is that the importance of research in advance of an interview. So it's not about trying to guess what questions they're going to ask you. As you said, it's really about researching the employer, their context, their opportunities, their challenges, what's important to them through reading the job posting really in detail and also just kind of going beyond that. I suggest that they use ChatGPT and pull some, what has the employer been posting about online? What are they talking about? How have they been in the news? How's their stock doing? Like what's their turnover like? Like just understanding kind of the context that they're operating in and then using that research to help inform the interview process, and help inform how they shape their answers to make them contextualized, right? Because it's one thing to understand your strengths as you're talking about and like prepare and practice talking about your strengths, but it's another to contextualize those to that particular employer in that interview. And I think that's really important and really key, whether you're pivoting industries and changing completely, or whether you're just going to a new company that maybe you're not as familiar with. Um, Being able to contextualize your stories and your strengths is when you're going to connect with the interviewer.
Absolutely. And the only thing to add there is like, I think sometimes um, I've seen clients struggle with this is
Mm-hmm.
they either ramble too much. So they get a question and they spit out everything about their history, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or they practice too much and they sound a little bit too scripted, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to sound too robotic in the interview as well, because you want to show your authentic self.
Yeah.
It's kind of about getting that sweet spot. And I think that's where the repetitions come in, right? So
Yeah.
once you have the things that you want to talk about that highlight your strengths, and you start practicing and doing your repetitions, that's where you're going to get the confidence to show your authentic self, right? You'll find
Yeah.
that sweet spot of like, okay, these are the things that I should mention. This is how I kind of connect the dots. And over time, as you do more and more, you're
Mm-hmm.
just going to become more comfortable with it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think some of that, like candidates don't always know how, if they're rambling or if the story's too long or too short or if they're making sense. And so I know when I do like live preparation sessions, like interview prep sessions with people, I give them that feedback very honestly. But tell us about the my interview tool. Like, does it give them that sort of feedback? What kind of you know feedback can they expect when they're practicing?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that the system works is you would come in, we have a lot of different types of interviews they can take. But one of the core functionalities is entering in a job title.
Mhm.
So the great thing is we use AI to generate the questions, right? So they enter in any job title, they enter in a job description that they get directly from the application that they submit,
Mhm.
and then they also enter in their resume. And with our AI algorithm, it's going to generate a unique interview for them every single time that they go through the simulation software. When they start the simulation, the questions are voiced to them with, again, through AI.
Mhm.
And what's nice is the system automatically records them after a certain time. So it's kind of like a real interview. You
Mhm.
don't know the questions beforehand. you're getting pretty relevant questions geared towards your resume, towards the position that you're going after. And the system is recording you through the webcam and microphone. So once you complete an entire interview, you can see the recorded responses and
Mm-hmm.
play them back to get a sense of how you did. The additional input there also is the AI feedback that you alluded to. So the system automatically generates some AI feedback to give them an idea of how they're doing. So the things that it sort of gives you feedback on is your pacing, right? Like, are you going too fast, a little
Mm-hmm.
too slow? Are you using filler words? Are you using good vocabulary? Any negative language detected? Are you making eye contact? Smiling enough, funny
Mm-hmm.
enough? Like we have also kind of show them if they're showing enough emotion, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is
Um,
important because a lot of times, like if we're practicing, we're in our heads and we're not necessarily like emoting enough, right? So that's good. Yeah, those are all valuable feedback, and I think those those feedbacks that they're getting allows them to prepare more effectively. And then when they do come to say a live prep session with a coach like myself, or they're practicing with a friend, then they're really just kind of fine tuning how to tell their story, how to make it relevant. But they've gotten in the mode. Like some people I work with haven't interviewed in 10 years because they've either been in the same role or they've been lucky enough to, network their positions. And it's terrifying if you haven't sat down and, in a, it's like a blind date, right? Like if you haven't been dating in 10 years or you haven't been on an interview in 10 years, it can be really nerve wracking. And so this opportunity to practice with a tool that's going to simulate that situation and allow you to get comfortable answering things on the spot, speaking to your strengths, working on your pacing and your tone, all those things. That's so good.
Absolutely. Yeah, and
Yeah.
and the second part to it is it also analyzes the content of your response, which is really
Okay,
cool. We
good.
launched
Mm-hmm.
that feature earlier this year,
Mm-hmm.
and essentially, like, it will let you know, A, did you answer the question? Can
Mm-hmm.
you restructure your response? So if it is a behavioral or situational question, what it will do is if you haven't kind of properly articulated it in a star format, it
Mm-hmm.
will restructure it to say, hey, here's how you can restructure with the situation first, the
Yeah.
task, the action, and the specific result that you were able to achieve, right?
Yeah.
Um, and it kind of guides them. It's not meant to be the end all be all. With AI, uh, there a lot of companies are now using AI for the recruiting process with,
Mm-hmm.
there's definitely some ethics there.
Mm-hmm.
We've taken a little bit of a different approach where it's kind of a guiding hand, right? It's like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
here's some suggestions, here's some ways to improve. We still highly encourage folks to share their interviews with others, and you can do that in the system. So you can share it
Mm-hmm.
with a coach like yourself
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or a family member, mentor, and in that way you can get another human to review your responses and really give you some of the intangibles.
Yeah, and I love that feature, right? Because so many of my clients want that feedback, but if we only have, say, an hour to prep for their interview, we can only get through so many questions. So if I've had the chance to review some work that they've already done, then we can just really work on, tweaking where they need to shine. Because so much of the whole preparation is really about confidence, right? Like when we're talking to clients and trying to get them feeling ready for an interview, yes, they need to know their value. Yes, they need to understand how to speak to their strengths. They need to research the employer. As we've said, they need to practice their questions just to get comfortable speaking to those areas. But I think bottom line is it comes down to confidence. Can you walk into that room and show up in a way that feels genuine and, feels authentic and feels empowered? And can you connect with the person that you're speaking with? And if you're too nervous or you're stuck in your head or you haven't prepared or you feel like you don't know the company, it's really hard to walk in there with confidence and know how to speak to, who you are out loud. I think one of the questions I like to ask clients before a big interview is like, who do you want to be in that room? How do you want to show up? And I think that the practice with an AI tool such as this, and the practice with humans and sharing your responses with humans and getting their feedback, can give you that, like, okay, yeah, I am showing up how I want, right? And if you don't like how you're showing up, okay, well then change it, right? Then you have the chance to work through that and change and adjust, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I 100% agree, right? I think it's
Mm-hmm.
all about the confidence. And I think that's the part people struggle with the most, tackling their nerves,
Yeah.
tackling the impression that it's like, okay, I have to know so much, right, going into this interview about the qualifications that they might ask me about. You know, they may
Hmm.
ask me about something on my resume from 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, and there is a lot, right, that they can throw at you.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you've done your prep, you've done enough repetitions, then you're going to have more confidence just naturally. And
Yeah.
that's definitely just going to shine through in the interviewing process.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Yeah. So as far as like mistakes people make, we talked earlier about not connecting your strengths to the employer specifically. I think we just touched on two more big mistakes, right? One is like overthinking to like and like being which can lead to like more nerves, right? So overthinking and just kind of getting in your head but not actually doing the work of like preparing. And then the third mistake, which is under preparation, right? Like just thinking, okay, in order to avoid the nerves and avoid the stress, I'm just gonna like go in there and wing it and just like trust that my personality will like pay off and I'll nail the interview, right? And there's the odd occasion where you might get lucky and have like a really strong conversation and the employer might love you because you're really good on your feet and you can just think, but I never suggest that as a strategy, right? Like winging it is not really the way to go. We're in this space of helping people prepare and practice. And so I think, the mistake of under preparing is a big one that we want to try and help people to avoid. And so are there specific like steps or a number of hours or practice sessions that you would suggest people do to prepare effectively or enough?
Um, I think it totally varies based on the person, right? I think as long as you've done at least 1 to 2 mock interviews, right, just to get an
Hmm.
idea of, and whether that's live with someone, right, because
Hmm.
that's a great option as well. We were just talking earlier about everything being virtual nowadays.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
if you have the opportunity to do it live, absolutely, right?
Hmm.
But a lot of people, everyone's so busy, they don't have the ability to meet in person. And so a tool like this is kind of the next best thing. And
Yeah.
as long as you're taking at least a couple of practice sessions, that will really be the kind of litmus test to say, okay,
Hmm.
do I know my stuff enough where I'd be comfortable going into this interview? Or it's like
Hmm.
eye-opening to some people and it's like, oh wow, like
Hmm.
these questions that I'm getting are really, really relevant and they kind of stump me, right?
Yeah.
Um, and the really good part about the recordings is you can see how you come off, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes we're the biggest critics of ourselves when we're looking at ourselves in the video, and it
Yeah.
can be a little like, even myself, when watching my recordings, I'm like, oh wow, like, I,
Cringe.
right? I could have done this better. I could have done that
Yeah.
better. But without being overly, picky, you can get a
Hmm.
general idea of how you're coming off, right?
Yeah.
And once you've had a couple of sessions like that, the outcomes are just going to get better and better from there.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Good, good. And so like I want to talk a little bit about mindset because I think that that's critical to like this whole idea of practicing and proper preparation. And so one of the phrases I always use with clients is, this isn't a test, right? Like when you're going into this interview, it's not a test. It's just a conversation. And sometimes I compare it to a date, which is maybe a more high pressure situation than an interview for some people. But it's a two-way street is the point that I'm trying to make there, right? Is it's like you're there to connect, you're there to learn about the company, you're there for them to learn about you and your strengths. And so again, back to that whole idea of like researching, preparing. Um, and so when you think about it being a conversation, I think sometimes talking into a screen can be tough for people to like prepare. How does the way that this tool is set up make it like a conversation? Like how is that helpful for people to treat it that way in terms of mindset?
Yeah, the great question. So the way the simulation software is set up is it kind of builds on the questions, right? So it'll think logically about like how to open up the simulation and then how to
Hmm.
close it out. And then it will try to progress through the interview just like a natural conversation. One thing is it doesn't ask you like deeper questions that you would get in person,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And that is something actually that we are looking into in future iterations. The technology is getting there. The
Hmm.
speed at which AI is advancing is just it's mind
Hmm.
blowing. And so I think that technology is coming soon, right? Within the
Hmm.
next year
Hmm.
or two,
Hmm.
where it's be very conversational. So if I mention something about, growing monthly active users on MyInterviewPractice, right? It'll be able to dig a little bit deeper and say, okay, like you said, you used this specific strategy. Tell me a little bit
Hmm.
more, right? So
Right.
that technology is coming.
Yeah.
Just the baseline algorithm does a decent job of simulating what the interview might feel like.
Hmm.
But again, it comes down to like once you go through and see your recordings and
Hmm.
understand like how you're coming off, naturally when you step into that room, you're going to have that confidence to have more of a conversation
Yeah.
about it versus
Yeah.
treating it like, oh, I don't know the answers to this test.
Yeah. 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 That's awesome. Good. Cool. So let's kind of just review what we've talked about a little bit, and just maybe I'll tell people how they can kind of try this out if they want to, and then we'll close here. So uh basically we're recommending, for anyone who's like preparing for an interview, you're here today and maybe you're thinking, okay, like, give me some strategies. I got my interview tomorrow. Like, what can I do? Right. So number one is like, do your research, right? Prepare, learn about the company, understand, what it is that you're really interviewing for, and what is the problem that you're able to solve for them, or the opportunity that you're able to meet for them that would allow them to choose you, right? So do your research and make that connection then to your strengths, right? Identify what it is that they care about and how you can connect to that in the interview, and then take that information and practice and prepare in a practical sense, using a tool like MyInterviewPractice, and working with someone like a coach, right, to actually fine tune how you're telling the stories, make them contextualized, bring that confidence into it, bring that ability to speak to your value and connect it to the why for the employer, right? And then take the feedback that you get and continue to prepare and practice so that you're able to not sound rehearsed. That's not what we're going for. We're not wanting to over prepare, but so that you're able to come in with confidence and feel actively ready to think on your feet and to answer questions, because you know who you are, right? Like you're the expert on your career, you're the expert on your skills and your strengths. The challenge is just relaying that through your language and through your stories. And so that's where this preparation really allows you to do that more effectively. So if this is, resonating with you today and you're like, okay, I need this tool, I need to practice. Well, there's good news. If you want to join my AI for Job Seekers course, which I've created online, this tool is included. Free access to this tool is included in our relationship here with the tool with Raj. So if you join, you can reach out to me if you want more information about the course. You get 3 months of access to the course and to the My Interview Practice tool. It allows you to practice for all your interviews that you have during your job search time. And it's fully integrated, and you can even create your own custom interview questions, or you can work with me as your coach to create your own custom interview questions that you want to work on. So that's kind of why we're having this conversation today, because I'm really excited about this tool. I think it's going to change how prepared people feel going into interviews. I've already seen the power of using AI to prep for interviews. I do that already, and this tool just takes it to the next level. Any closing thoughts you want to share with us, Raj?
No, I think you hit on almost everything. If I were to say one last thing is, take a deep breath, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
Ariel mentioned, you already you already know yourself, right? More than the person across the room is gonna know you, right? And go in with that confidence, because that's where your genuine self is gonna show and shine through.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, get after it. Get land that dream position that you've always been wanting to get.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll leave you with the big question, right? Which is, how do you want to show up, right? How do you want to be in that room? And that's what you're going to go away and practice. Yeah. Thanks so much, Raj, for being here today with me, and for having this conversation. It's been a pleasure. And thank you to everyone who was able to join us for the live. And if you're watching the recording, subscribe on YouTube and follow us on LinkedIn, and stay connected. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.
Thanks all.